Hello, and welcome to the first episode of our podcast series, The Naked Tooth. I'm really excited to be here at Wantage Dental Practice, which is our newest state-of-the-art practice, which incorporates digital and AI technology to improve the patient journey and essentially improve patient outcomes. Today, we are joined by Shalin Mehra, the founder and chairman of Rodericks Dental Partners, and also Jason Wong, who is Chief Dental Officer. I'm going to hand over to them shortly, and they're going to be talking to you about the future of the dental workforce. They're going to give you some insight on the changes that are going to be implemented from the 1st of April and also the state of our current workforce.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all here today. Jason, firstly, thank you very much for your presentation, and it's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. I know you've been really busy the last couple of weeks with all the changes being released. There was quite a few things in your presentation that I think we'll be picking up on. And looking back at your history, I remember that you were deputy CDO at one point.
Yes.
You then went into interim in 2023, I believe, and in 24 you got the substantive role of Chief Dental Officer of England. So tell me how you felt when that phone call came to you and said, you've been appointed.
That's actually a good question. I mean, it was from Steve Powers, who was the National Medical Director at the time. And actually, yeah, it felt really good. I think, with these things, there's always a competitive, even the interim actually was a competitive process. But yeah, no, very pleased to, but also slightly daunted at the prospect, because obviously it's not a job that a lot of people have ended up doing well at the end of it.
Yeah, I'm amazed, because for many people, I think it would have been, oh my God, I've got it, and now I've got to deliver on it.
Oh yes,
there was a lot of that, I imagine. So if I take Jason back to young Jason at the age of 23, on his first day in practice, and the older Jason says to him, "You're going to be Chief Dental Officer one day," what would you have said to yourself?
Oh no, I wouldn't have believed it for sure. I mean, it was nowhere in my plans at all. So, but I mean, I would say actually, if for a lot of people, there's always this thought process that if you don't plan, if you'll fail, and somehow you've got to set these goals. I actually don't believe that myth is entirely true. When the fellows gathered, it was a couple of years ago, and I gathered someone who was sort of GDPC chair, someone who's a postgraduate dental dean in the Midlands who'd just come in, the then CDO, and others who'd got to the top of their field, and asked them all to explain to the fellows actually, at what point it became the plan to reach that point. And actually none of them had that plan at the 23, the 25, the 30-year-old.
That's really interesting, because I'm exactly the same. I never had a goal. I never had a plan. We drifted from one expansion to another, got bigger. At first, you kind of think, oh, we'll manage this, or we'll manage it. But actually, you don't need a goal. And I think when I speak to people in our profession, it's quite common.
Yeah, people ask you got to have the intent to develop. And I always think, and in fact, some of the conversations we've had is about developing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started working, well, actually, I only started working for NHS England when it was formed in 2013.
Okay.
On the basis that they had decided for the first time that clinical leadership was going to be part of the structure.
Right.
Rather negatively, I think it was actually seeing who else was in the running for it that made me apply for it.
Someone you didn't want to take over.
Yeah,
right.
Rather frightened about who would do that.
Yeah.
And then really, and the running joke was, having taken over and it was initially Lincolnshire, Leicestershire. The move then was, the NHS likes its restructure, and it just got bigger. So I then took over Central Midlands, so sort of from Lincolnshire all the way to Welwyn Garden City, Hertfordshire. And then for a time I took over Janet Clark when she left her area. So the joke amongst the LDN chairs was actually I wasn't planning to be CDO, I was actually just going to take up region by region and then take over the whole of England.
Take over England.
Yes, that was the long-running joke that we had. But actually, no, that was never a plan. The call came, I suppose, to apply for deputy was, I think COVID, the fact that it had a massive impact and the sector needed help.
Yeah.
the then CDO said, we have a problem, in particular with comms, and we think that you communicate well. I know that there were others in the running, so that was.
Right.
So I actually had my interview on the 8th of June 2020. Now some of you are going to go, 8th of June 2020. It's the first day dentistry reopened.
Yeah, that's right.
So my day that day was doing a radio interview, my last unsanctioned radio interview, I should say, doing non-AGP emergencies, if everyone remembers that.
Yeah.
Then sitting for a lunchtime panel in front of 4 officials, and then finishing the day and going home. And
it seems like such a long time ago, COVID, doesn't it?
It's incredible.
But it changed everything in the profession, didn't it?
Yeah,
Did you find that as well?
Oh, totally. I mean, there was the impact that it had, the fact that someone had pressed pause on dentistry, which no one's ever done before. And yeah, some of the stuff, as I was saying just now, there are things. I was just speaking with my honorary consultants just before I came out, and I said, first of all, people don't read, and someone said, yeah, we found that out in 2020.
Yeah.
People don't read. Yeah. And secondly, if you leave a vacuum, someone fills it what they think it can be and says it with a great deal of confidence. And we still have that now. So,
but looking back, I think what you guys achieved and did was a big help to the profession, especially when you're working in practice. You're quite isolated. It's not always easy to know what to do and how to navigate your way through. So it was extremely helpful. You touched on your role in the presentation.
Yeah.
But it's something that a lot of people don't really have clarity about or know about. Could you tell us a little bit more about your interactions, your role itself, what it covers?
Yeah, so officially I'm the clinical policy lead and the professional leadership lead for dentistry and oral health. And I represent within the system as head of the profession. So I have the responsibility for that. I'm also the sort of principal advisor to government on dental matters.
Okay.
That said, that is the theory, but it's also part of my remit to set the strategic direction of how things should be. But I always joke to say, well, I set the strategic direction without having any of the fiscal levers.
Yeah.
Because that falls under other parts of the system, and the system's quite big. So the expectation is that all things sort of, dental sort of ends up on my desk to clarify, and I'm the bridge between, if you like, the profession and both the NHS organisation and government.
So quite complex, a lot of people to work with, a lot of stakeholders to please, a lot of people to influence, I imagine. Yeah,
it's mostly influencing.
Yeah.
I mean, the job is not able to be done a bit like the one that I just showed, and that is actually dental workforce safety I was talking about there. And even that, I just on something that should be my remit, I probably have over half the levers of what you could have there. And yeah, there's many parts of it, and most of it is about working with others.
I know that during COVID, go back to COVID times, the private dentistry was also within the oversight. How does that work with you now? Do you have oversight over private dentistry, or is it you do?
Yeah, okay. I mean, so I think the one thing that will be helped with the job is a joint appointment between the Department of Health and NHS England. There were times that people had chosen because the CDO sat within the NHS England structure that it didn't apply, and I think that will be eliminated when the department reforms as the new department. So yes, I mean the job is, and on one of my slides, the remit is to over NHS and private treatment.
Yeah.
I think some colleagues have got to understand when the government looks at things, I don't think you should take it as an insult that they prioritise NHS treatment. That's their political issue that they have to deal with. The role does involve looking over private treatment. At the moment, we're working on things, taking the ban on tooth whitening for children.
Oh yeah.
Out of scope. That's entirely private.
Okay.
And we're working on seeing whether that legislation can be changed.
Right.
Because we don't see a clinical reason for it not to be.
Okay.
And also, the clinical policies, the bugs and the treatments don't change just because you've been paid differently on it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm going to look to move on a little bit about the contract changes.
Yep.
Now, you've obviously been involved a number of years in looking over the contract and the changes that we had marginal gains. We've now got 26 reform coming in. Now, as a provider, we're really mindful of the fact that there is only so much money, and we're in an environment where money is going to be stretched.
Yep.
And this is for government. Every department, I'm sure, is looking for more money, as will no doubt be dentistry.
Yes.
So I guess it must have been quite a challenge to try and make any changes within the existing envelope. How did you go around doing that?
I mean, that was never in question. And I think one of the problems we had, and you know, I've spoken to colleagues about this, because if you think about 2006, a contract came into being. By 2008, you had the Health Select Committee say, actually, we don't think this contract is fit for purpose.
Yeah.
2009, Jimmy Steele carried out, you know, what I would call a landmark review into NHS dentistry. And then really from 2010 all the way to 2021, the whole system was saying, actually, what we're doing is we're going to try and use pilot, prototype, whatever it became in the end, and we're going to find the perfect system. Well, newsflash, the perfect system does not exist, okay? And there is no country in the world that is actually turning around going, we have the perfect system, you should copy us. And that is telling. So everyone has its issues, you know, so you could have a system that says, well, we just don't provide for any adults.
Yeah.
You know, that's, but then dentistry, basic dentistry becomes the prevail of the very wealthy. So actually, no system is perfect. So what was clear was 21 that we, come what may, we needed to improve things.
Right.
And I think it's been accepted that 22 reforms did improve things. Not a huge amount, and that's why we call them marginal gains. I know people like to call them tweaks. But actually, for me, in the role that I have, there was never a question. Everything that we were doing was within the financial envelope. In fact, I would say everything that we've done in the last 3 years is trying to make sure, divert as much of the funding towards those most in need, those that are most in need, and those least able to access it. And I think that we should have been actually, as a profession, a lot more honest and upfront about that.
Yeah.
I still have concerns as we move on to fundamental reforms that that's not clarified right at the beginning.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to come back to later, because I think that's going to make interesting reading, and how you influence and manage that. That's going to be quite a tough journey. But I'm sure you're the person for it, so that'll be great to have you there. Can you summarise the reforms to the contract that are coming in April 26? You've mentioned a few, and we've seen a few.
I mean, so at its core, there is a urgent care or unscheduled care part to it. So the idea that everyone has a part to play. Yeah. And as I said, I think what's beginning to leak right now, and certainly you know the figures, what's beginning to leak right now, it's not scaring the horses.
Good.
Right? So let's just make that clear. So there's that. Then there's the 3 high complexity pathway. Really what the profession has been complaining about, you know, when someone opens their mouth, I have to do that within, you know, either a band 2 or a band 3. Yeah. So actually that's a lot. And the key critical thing, I know we previously advocated for phasing the courses of treatment. Actually, what we've done here is actually making it so that the patient only pays once. So for all that treatment that they get, for the costing that I told you, the patient only has the one charge.
So that is still the same charge, the higher band?
Band 2 charge.
Oh, right, okay.
So I think, you know, I think that's quite significant, because previously we were advocating for people to phase the course of the treatment, but of course, each time they came in, they had to pay yet another band 2 charge and everything else. So the
patient charge revenue might go down that you collect here.
Yeah. Concerns being raised from some corners. As
I can imagine.
And then the third part, which is the having quality payments, which was not big in numbers, was a real, and it was, I mean, absolutely fought for those, because it was an easy hit for if there were pressures around. And I said it's sending out that signal. And then there were some modifications. So the idea that people, and I didn't go into it in my presentation, but if you took a tooth out, added it to the denture, you were basically not being paid for adding it to the denture. Well, now you are. So you've been given extra for that. On top of the band 2, you've been given the 2 UDAs for the addition, which I think is positive. And then the idea of using dental nurses. So if they can place fluoride varnish, because sometimes the frequency at which you need the fluoride varnish is shorter than the frequency that you need the consultation.
Yeah.
Nothing stopping a practice having dental-led clinics on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also the fissure sealants, as I said, we know why people don't do it.
Yeah.
It takes too much time for what you get paid for it. So that's been corrected. So actually, overall, that part is a skill mix part. The complexity part, I still think is encouraging skill mix. So the whole package sort of going through. And it's quite right. I have never said we've brought in new funding.
Yeah.
But what we must do, the most toxic thing that's affected dentistry is actually the dental clawback.
Yeah.
It is really hard to go to government and the Treasury and say, we need more funding in order to reform the system. Well, why do you? You gave 400 million back last year.
Yeah. You don't use what you've already got.
What on earth are you talking about? I'm hoping this set of reforms will set us on a trajectory that within a year or two, and I know there'll be pressure. People want to push one. We all reach a point where we're as close to 100% as possible. Yeah. At that point, the fundamental reforms which the government has promised before the end of this parliament will start on the basis that all the money that we've allocated is used. Now we come up with what will come up next.
I mean, you mentioned fundamental reform. Do you actually think there is a possibility that could happen? Because if these changes work now and access improves and care for the high needs patients improves, is there a need for a change?
I think it's a political imperative, actually.
Right, okay.
So for me, my team are a bit worried that we haven't let it bed down and to review to see whether this would have changed things in the right direction and whether further tweaks can. And then we're suddenly going to run the risk of ripping everything up and starting again. But this government came in with manifesto pledge, of which one is a new dental contract for the end of the parliament. So,
could they adopt this as a new contract?
No.
No. So it will be fundamental change.
Fundamental. They'll be pushing. I mean, in a funny sort of way, they'll actually be pushing that much harder than I would be from a clinical perspective, because I'd quite like to see whether the next set and whether there are further changes that you can make to do that. But
did you ever consider having a capitation element to the contract?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Capitation, registration, all manner was on the table.
Okay.
And everything was considered from sort of start to finish and how you make that. And at the end of the day, it is a political decision. I mean, I've said that before, that in the fundamental reform, my job will be presenting clinical effectiveness, clinical appropriateness, and also cost effectiveness, and saying to the politicians, this is it. It will be a political decision as to what they do with that, whether they proceed and how they proceed and what they do.
One of the things you mentioned earlier about clinical leadership.
Yeah.
At Rodericks Dental Partners, one of the things we want to do is bring in clinical leadership for each practice, so having a clinical lead in each practice.
Yeah.
How do you see that fitting in with the new contract changes coming in 2026?
And I think that's a really good idea. I mean, it's funny, we talked about, in order to satisfy some people say, well, where's the money going to come from? We've said, look, there might be an improvement in guidance application for recalls.
Yeah.
That's all that it says in the paperwork. But people are making up the 2 years based on a sentence that the minister said to try and say there's no enforcement, no compulsion. It's asking the profession, by the way, you might want to look at this guidance. It's been out since 2003.
Yeah.
You might want to do that. So I think that, the profession almost wants someone to tell it what to do.
Yeah.
But actually, not all the things that we do should be done by prohibition and contract management. There's a lot of peer-to-peer stuff that we should be doing and leading the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, there is, in theory, you could say that when the new system came out, you could say, well, rather than provide the post-crown, which takes more to do, for the same band 3, I'll only offer a denture. I don't think anyone did that, and that's fine. Or there was nothing in the system that said you couldn't put an amalgam on the buckle of a 1, was there? Nothing physically said you couldn't do it. But somehow our professionalism did kick in. And I do think we need more of that. And the professional clinical leadership that leads the peer review. Hopefully you'll take
peer
that up.
review,
Peer
appraisals.
review, a clinical audit appraisal.
Absolutely.
Then you have a leader within the structures that you have here. You have leaders maybe more regionally, and then everything fits in more. I would like to see the profession take that. I mean,
and we can share best practice amongst
Yeah.
whatever's really working well in the practice. We can cascade that out.
Yeah. I mean, what does worry me is when people say, just tell us what to do. I said, you've been very expensively trained. Who am I to tell you what frequency you should be seeing?
Yeah.
All that NICE guidance says is a risk-based call you need to make. That's all it's asking you to do. And now, of course, they're hoping that the AI will come in and rescue them and tell them what to do by providing an algorithm. And I do see why that is, and why that there's an element of, and I'm trying to eliminate, as I said, the fear culture. And so I do understand why people say, I don't want to push it out any further because I run risks and I don't want to take those risks.
Yeah.
But I think there's a middle ground that we need to meet.
So I'm going to give you a magic wand.
Okay.
You can wave it and you can get 3 wishes for dentistry. What would they be and why?
Wow. 3 wishes. I mean, I think it would absolute clarity about what the NHS offer is and what the expectation is. So if I could do that, and that by that I don't mean, this is a magic wand we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
So with the magic wand, you would say, you would have some kind of, the NHS constitution for medical health care has almost a minimum offer for the population. And if this really is a magic wand, it would be nice to think the budget somehow can go up. As you said, that's not that. And within it, what is that population offer?
Yeah.
And you have to think.
And Jason, that is something that dentists, we find it complex. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I speak to my colleagues, it's not easy to know what that offering is. And I think it would be absolutely great if that ever happened, because you can then genuinely not have to worry about what you've said to patients. Is that the right thing I've said? Have I made a note of the right thing? All those kind of things. So yeah.
And the one big advantage of having fundamental reform is that will have to be surfaced.
Yeah.
So that would be magic wand action number 1, I think.
Yeah.
I think the adaptation of skill mix. So I still do not understand. I mean, for a while people were saying, how do you do your job as well as run a practice, 12 surgery practice, and also do your clinical work? Well, I can't do that if I don't have a team.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand, every young dentist I speak to, what do you want to do? I want to develop. So then how come 90% of your book is a basic perio and a checkup? How on earth
are you going to develop
on that, right? You probably could quite do with someone, maybe, Shalin bringing in a dental therapist and dental hygienist who's doing work here, where some of that work could just go that way to let you develop, right? So I see that. I mean,
do you work with therapists yourself?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I do.
Excellent.
Yeah. Try and develop it, and it's not easy from a sort of standing start, but yeah, I mean, we do that, and also at my practice we have 3 managers.
Yeah.
So that I don't have the time to micromanage stuff and look into it. So all these things I think come into play, and I would like to see us use the team more.
Yeah.
The other aspect is it's not just using the team more. Actually, that improves retention.
Yeah.
Because currently people go, people walk up to me and say, "There's a recruitment problem with dental nurses." I said, "Yeah, but is there also a retention problem with dental nurses?" Right? Because the numbers registering are still coming in. Well, actually, yes. Well, why is that? And AI will help a bit.
Yeah.
Because some of the mundane stuff will be taken out. One of the things we're bringing in, the University of Huddersfield, is for the first time a dental nurse degree.
Right.
And the idea is not that before people jump at me, every dental nurse needs a degree, but actually I think it would have helped develop the leadership within dental nursing.
Yeah.
So alongside Chief Nursing Officer, we've talked to the University of Huddersfield, putting together all the competencies, extended duty, plus the mouth care matters, oral healthcare, management and leadership, and have a degree, and hope that profession will develop professionally.
So you've got 2 wishes granted.
Yeah.
What's your final one going to be?
And on that, I mean, I already want to sort of, you know, this idea that we have an ability to grow the proportion of work that has been done. And on that, I think probably the third one may well still be related to that. Is really about the workforce of the future. So I'm going to be a bit controversial in your podcast here, which is my feeling is if you take, let's say, an arbitrary date of 2040, do we still expect the figures to be 95% of all dental work done by a dentist? Because that's a fundamental question that they've got to answer. Because I think if the answer to that is yes, and that's a legitimate answer, this is what we like. I don't know why you were. This is how we want to do things. Then I think the entry requirements in the dental curriculum needs to be ripped up entirely. Because we've currently, since the mid-90s, been fishing, and there's some young folks in the room, from people who get 3 A's in their exams. Getting 3 A's in your exams and never failing an exam is not preparation for general dental practice. Skill set in general dental practice is practical skills, empathy, communication skills, how you interact with the patient, how you interact with the team.
Yeah.
So therefore, why are we picking the straight A students?
Have you ever given any thought to like an escalator model of education? So you get to a therapist after 2 years and then you stay on to do the dental degree, et cetera, et cetera. How do you see that working?
Yes. There's a dental school in the UK about to set that right up.
Really? Oh, wow.
So yeah, absolutely.
That's really good.
The escalator and you know, the problem is bandwidth. Is there's so much going on with it, but yeah, definitely, I think that's a possibility. So for me, I think it is that. I think it's that I would like to be able to plan, and we've actually asked permission to do this. So Jane Spencer, who you know is the chair of English Dean, and I have asked that once the workforce plan is published, that we do a full and comprehensive review of postgraduate, undergraduate training.
That should be good.
In dentistry and oral health, actually work out the population basis, the work that they want, and the workforce that we need.
I so agree with you, Jason, that I often think we're choosing the wrong people right at the start, and we're setting them up to fail.
Well, if you still, I mean, actually, you could still keep the high academic achievement if what you then do is have the big proportion of the work done by others. So the answer would be no. And I know universities are paid more because the grades are higher, so there's a financial incentive. But one of the things I will say to them is, yes, you can still have that, but I'd like to see that 5% go to 10 and go to 20 and maybe go to 30%. Because I think, yes, you can still do it. Then what we will then do is to think about, if we've got the high academic achievers, whether we start to prepare our dental students and the dentists of the future for the high complexity stuff of the future. The things like the aging population, things that, you know, that it's going to be world leading in research, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's about skewing that. At the moment, it's trying to get the system to say one way or the other. It's not going to be my decision which one of those two models it is, but what we shouldn't do is just keep
doing the same.
Keep churning and doing the same.
Yeah.
And then every year going, you know, you say we don't have enough. And we've been the lowest, you know, one of the things that really vexes the minister's mind is we're the lowest number of dentists per capita in the G7.
Yeah, which is not a good place to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he doesn't want us to be there.
You've been CDO for a while now, Jason. You've implemented a lot of things, been involved in a lot of change. What's the one thing that you've implemented that you're most proud of, and why?
I mean, that's tricky. I don't think I've got the one big thing. I mean, a lot of this is teamwork. I think getting the HMR exemption was critical. Now, lots of people claim credit for that, but they've been working on it for 9 years or something like that. I think that was quite important. In terms of the patient, sort of the workforce safety, getting the indemnity companies to all sign up to a pledge that they don't increase levies just because someone calls if they don't start a case.
Yeah,
I think that's quite significant.
You see, that's all really good stuff, but it's not out there. Even I've heard of it, but I'm sure if you ask people in the audience, they wouldn't be aware of the fact that, you know, you've done that you've actually made it. Because there was a time indemnity societies, you called them, your premiums went up.
Yeah.
And that's
All but one signed up to that pledge.
that's really good.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that maybe.
And but my aim is to change the culture change. So I'm on that path. And as I said, it's a very interesting conversation I was having with Phillips about what she aimed to do in her tenure and what I would aim to do.
Okay. And what would you aim to do?
Well, as I said, entire culture change in terms of what you do.
Okay.
People turning up to work and not worried about things, not writing nonsense clinical notes that they don't
not
need
looking
to write.
at anyone.
not looking at anyone in particular.
Yeah.
And we all do it, right? We all do it because we're worried about someone doing that. And you know, if you speak to all the indemnity company, they'll say people use template notes, and the moment they use template notes, they leave a bit of it unfilled in, and then the whole thing is questioned.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really help.
Yeah.
And then you don't really, you can't find the thing you're looking for because the whole thing is so massive.
You lose the key message, don't you?
You do.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand. I've got the GDC, I've got CQC on side on this. I have some level of influence over the NHS England dental advisors, all 50 across the nation. There's the independent clinical experts that I probably need to get to. So that's where I would use the last one if I still had a wish.
No.
Which is to be able to stop, you know, that kind of writing things that are not
Admirable wishes. And
well,
that'd be great. Actually, some of them can happen. They can happen even within
I'd be very
the current
happy.
climate.
I mean,
Absolutely. Going back to, we talked about Jason, the age of 23. What if you had a young school leaver come into you and saying, I'm thinking of doing dentistry? What would your advice be to them?
Well, absolutely do it. I mean, I was opening a student centre for QMUL on Tuesday, and I'm going to go to the BDSA conference, which has all of them there. And I'll always say, you know, this is a great profession. There's no one in my peer group that I would have changed career for.
Okay.
And that is not, I'm not talking about the CDO job, even before that, you know, in terms of the practice, the team, and the work that I was doing. Yeah. So I actually think I'm trying to send that kind of message, because I think people think, oh, it's not, you know. I think sometimes we get cocooned and we don't, you know, you're able to basically choose what hours you work.
Yeah. You're
What kind of
self-employed,
patient you want to, what part of the country you want to go to.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I
100%
do wonder.
employment.
100%
employment.
100% employment. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and you go there and I see, you know, people complain on the forums. I should perhaps keep off the forums because you get a bit depressed by it, you know. And then someone goes, oh, this is slavery. I said, well, I don't think it is. You know? I don't think you know the meaning of the word, if it is. So, yeah, I actually think it's really possible. So if I find, I speak to dental school students and young graduates all the time, and I try and tell them how
on
good
a
it is.
similar theme, as you know, I work with WT&E and NHS England, and I come across quite a few new graduates. And the fear of litigation, the fear of complaints is really, really high.
Yeah.
And at the forefront of their mind. And it's really worrying because I'm not sure where they're picking it up from. Is it undergrad schools? I can't think of where else. But what advice would you give to 23-year-olds qualifying?
I mean, exactly that. Firstly, it is not as you perceive it. So I can guarantee, whatever you perceive it, it's actually a lot better. Mm-hmm. And the work that I was explaining to you in terms of the culture of fear, it is exactly to tackle that, because I don't think that culture should be there at all.
We need to get to the root cause of where is it coming from, because I know in foundation training we get the message across. Actually, it's less than 2-3% will end up at the GDC. It's actually a very small amount.
A very small number, and a very small number of your career. I'm almost certain well-meaning GDPs who go in to teach students in their last 2 years are partly to blame.
Okay.
I'm also pretty sure some foundation trainers are not the best on this.
Yeah.
Taking great pleasure in telling people, you know, in my day this has never happened, but it's likely you're going to be in front of the GDC. Well, no, technically it's not. And secondly, you're likely to be sued numerous times. So trying to move away. Some of the regulation and litigation reform, if we can get that through, that would fundamentally be a game changer.
Right. Okay.
And then I think we can start to
eliminate that fear out of their minds.
100%. 100%. And if I can do that, I mean...
Oh, that'd be a great win.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think that leads to the next thing that we're going to go on to, which is I also am finding that when they transition from foundation training to being an associate, it's actually quite a tough transition. It's equally as bad as undergrad to foundation training. So one of the things at Rodericks Dental Partners we do is the FD+1 program. It's a program to support them in the first year in practice. And actually one of the things we cover also is wellness and well-being and looking after yourself. How worried are you about the burnout, the stress that the profession's currently seems to be under?
Yeah, I mean, really worried, and I don't think we should be there at all. And I think that is some of the changes we need to make. I mean, when we first talked about that, I didn't go into it. The 10-year health plan. There was the graduate tie-in there for UK graduates. That was named in there. If they can get that right, that may be actually a pretty good policy. But the question is whether they'll fund it to get it right.
Okay.
It takes 7 years to train a GP from medical school.
Yeah.
If they pass every single time and every single run.
Yeah.
We have someone from dental school, put them in our practices for a year and then just go,
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, it's all yours.
We were talking about accreditation, the tier 2 development and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
There is no question fundamental reform will have to include that.
Yeah.
I mean, the point I've been trying to make to the politicians is the NHS commissions tier 2 contracts and tier 3 contracts. If it's going to fundamentally change the contract, it needs to build development back in. Because what is it that the system otherwise is trying to
achieve?
Yeah, to take you back to the 23-year-old me.
Yeah.
You know, the NHS is approaching you with saying, if you did this, we will give you X number of UDAs for the next 30 years of your career. It's not a good sell, is it? But if the NHS could utterly change that offer and say, actually, you could do this, you could have your patient base, we will take some of the burden off, take your indemnity, we will then put development in it in terms of tier 2. That could see a fundamental shift that would completely transform what we're talking about.
That would be interesting.
And that on the basis of what we've got out there already wouldn't take new funding. It wouldn't cure all the problems.
Yeah.
But it would actually change the way that that they would be perceived.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if they get that wrong, my worry is 3 years begins to be the process that everyone retires from the NHS.
Yeah.
And they will come out with another public consultation on that policy.
Right.
So in terms of, they will put that back out to say, look, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it.
So we need to make sure we're involved and
100%.
comment on it and make sure we get it the way it should be.
Yeah.
Okay. You touched on skills mix earlier, and it's something I was really fortunate to work with a therapist in practice most of my working life. And that was through Options for Change, which not many people in the room will remember. It was a long time ago. And actually, what I learned was how great it was to work with a therapist and how much my life became easier and actually reduced the stress I was under as well. And I guess one of the biggest, most disappointing things is to hear you say it's only 5% of work is done by a therapist. And I can't understand the why.
No,
Have you got any thoughts yourself?
I think some found the business model didn't work.
Okay.
I think at its core, the business model didn't work. And as I said, whenever we think about clinical policy, I do always make the point that, you know, the clinical policy is one of, this is the most clinically appropriate, effective care.
Yeah.
But we operate this through about 9,000 practices in England who each have their own priorities and thought process about how it does. So the policy needs to involve that. So I actually think fundamentally that doesn't work. Secondly, if you speak to the therapist, they blame dentists. And they say, you know, it's the dentist, they've been protectionists, they don't want to do that. I haven't seen that much evidence. And as you know, owner performer in dentistry, especially on the NHS, is almost becoming obsolete.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's less than 10% of the workforce.
Yeah.
And the fact that private dentistry, which has its own remuneration system, really hasn't done any better.
I think under the new system, the changes you're bringing in, I think we'll see an improvement, because I can see therapists doing fish sealants,
Yeah.
which at the moment it probably isn't incentivized enough for them to do. Whereas I think with the new changes coming through, I can see them being much more involved in having those kind of clinics and having direct access and dealing with children. So I think the opportunities are much more with just the tweaks that you've done and the changes you've made.
And I think that for children in particular, the therapist scope of practice matches really well. And there's very little that a child needs that they couldn't do.
That's right.
And therefore that can be referred out. So I think there's an element of, again, it comes down to culture mainly. There is something about the business model, although if it's entirely the business model, you would have expected private practice to get a march on it.
Yeah, but they're ahead of the game, aren't they?
Not much.
No?
Not much.
Okay.
I mean, how many? There are some individual. I mean, I have a friend who runs a specialist practice, and he only has his. He sort of does the surgery bit, and he almost has everyone in each step of the process.
Yeah.
But no, it's not usually sort of the way that things happen. Some people say, oh, it's the patients. So whatever we do is that, we need to educate the profession that this is something that could happen, and it's good for both. Decreases stress on the dentist, increases retention, more interesting work for the dental therapist, for dental nurses having the extra duties, having more abilities for retention and be able to develop. And if you speak to most of the other team members, what do you want to do? Funnily enough, they also say, I'd like to develop and do the next thing. It's actually... So
it motivates them.
Yeah,
it's a motivational tool.
Exactly. So I think the reason is that I think the culture just hasn't encouraged it. And we tried to address some of that in the, building dental teams guidance that we put out, which is, look, you could have an altruistic practice owner who says, I'll pay for the salary of the therapist and you can use it and you don't have to worry this, that, and the other. Or you could do it piecemeal and how that works. But yeah, I think it is a culture change about how we approach that.
A bit like the culture change in this practice, going to being digitized and using technology as much as we can to improve the patient journey. What's your thoughts on, I know you seem guarded about AI in the future, possibly or not?
Oh, no, it's coming along whether we like it or not. I think from my perspective, I mean, the government is absolutely banking on AI revolution.
Okay.
And so is the 10-year health plan. If we don't get any kind of improvement in the tech sector, the NHS could run out of money in about 2.5 years.
Right, okay.
So we're not talking about next parliament or anything like that. Right. So as its current trajectory, we need AI to be able to take its part.
Okay.
And in order to take the bulk of the work that needs to be done. The part that I'm a bit worried about, specifically dental, is it's becoming, in some respect, too reliant on the diagnostic part and not having the basic skill.
Yeah, de-skilling.
De-skilling in the longer term.
Yeah,
now there are things that you could say, well, we haven't had to take a manual X-ray. You don't have to know how to develop it and things like that. I fully accept that. So I think de-skilling is one option. The other thing is cost, actually. You take it further. Of course, you then move into robotics.
Yeah.
We have a robot that's placed an implant.
And not just place an implant, but they can place an implant from America in this country using and that's just scary. And
the robot has prepped a crown in America and in China. Yeah. So we know that's happened. So I think that there's definitely a lot of scope. But my question then is, when does it become prohibitive in terms of a cost basis?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you've invested in tech here for these things. Then you move on to the AI algorithm that takes all your notes and decides.
And then at some point, like you say, robotics.
By the time you get that, the cost is absolutely massive. Yeah. Whether
you get a return on investment or not.
Exactly. I mean, that would be my question. But there's no question it's coming, and no question we're going to use it. But also, I think we're part of a service industry, so I do wonder. This. I don't know whether you've tried getting other. There are some products that you try and get into, especially I don't know, trying to get clarity about your mobile phone bill, where you go in the doom loop of the AI answering you, and then it says, "I don't know what you mean." And then you go through it again. And I think that as a service industry, yes, the majority can be taken off front desk. They can do that. That's fine. But the personal touch will have to be there when you're a service industry.
The balance has to be right, doesn't it?
It does. But there's no question it's there. And I also see it as positive for the dental nurses as well. I think some of the mundane processes that the dental nurse does automatically for the dentist when they're assisting can be automated, and that frees them up to do maybe more interesting and the more clinical stuff.
Yeah. My final bit was asking you, those of us who have been lucky enough to have a mentor in our working lives, we'll know how beneficial they are and how important they are to you for the rest of your life. Yeah. And that doesn't matter whether you're a dentist, a team member, a practice manager, someone working in marketing, someone in HR. So who would you class as the mentor you had, or did you not have one?
I did. I mean, several. I think Mike Wise. I don't know whether you're familiar.
Yeah, I do.
You'd have to be a certain age. I think he was a phenomenal clinician who had a way of doing things. I don't think I could match the clinical skills of Mike Wise, for sure. But there were the methodical thing that he did, how he arranged it, and he was the first person to set up the year restorative course. I think going back, when I was training, he was a great mentor to me. In terms of working within the NHS, sort of, whether Steve Powis, who I was reporting to before, but before that, the medical director in the Midlands that I did, I think it's absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of those things.
And do you sometimes find that you learn more for what not to do sometimes from people, even though they're not your mentors, but you see interaction, you think, actually, that's something when I get to that, I'll never be doing it that way. Yeah,
definitely you do that. But we need to get a culture, and we were discussing as someone earlier about, how do you get onto the next step? And my answer was, you need to get a mentor.
You do.
I mean, utterly separate from this line of work, when I started doing sort of oral surgery and then moving on to, and I did have a mentor. I mean, we're good friends. He's probably the same age as I am, actually, but he'd gone on to the specialist list sort of program, and I placed my first implant with him nursing for me. We did about 2 days where we switched roles, and we did that. I'd watched him in surgery probably 3-4 times. I felt like that was just a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
But I'm really surprised colleagues don't do it. And you're right. But you need to perhaps sometimes fund them and everything. And more are probably willing to have you observed than you think they are. Yeah. We just don't have that kind of thing. But I think in order to develop it, it's crucial.
Yeah.
But there are mentoring organisations coming up.
Right, okay.
There's more for wellbeing and stuff. And Mentoring UK, I've got meetings organised with them, and there are people trying to create this culture where people can have that.
Maybe one day the NHS might do something about mentoring, you never know.
Yeah.
Within the profession. It will aid retention massively, I have no doubt. So we're coming to the end. Before I get more to say thank you to and finish off the day, I just want to say thank you very much, Jason, for giving up your evening on a horrible night like this to get here as well. It's really greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Wow, I just wanted to say thank you to Jason and Shalin for that truly inspiring and thought-provoking talk on the future of the dental workforce. There's lots of information there that I'm going to take away and digest. But from the initial assumption, it sounds like the contract and the changes are going to be really promising and really positive. Of course, we're waiting for some more details, so we'll look out for that. We have a large team of dentists nationwide that are accepting referrals for specialist and special interest care. If you would like to refer one of your patients, please visit our website, www.rodericksdentalpartners.co.uk.